So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining in. Today's webinar is mainly focused on supply enhancements that have been released, and you may or may not be aware of if you've not been to any of the, Ivalua Now events. You may have not been aware of that. So we thought it would be a good one to actually do and go through that with you guys, so you can see what's out of the possible. Today I've got Karen Stanton as well with me, who some of you may already know, our customer success manager. I've also got Sabrina, who's from our marketing team as well, who will be with us from TSM. Karen's going to help me read out any question, because I don't see it on the webinar, so she's going to help me read out any of the questions. You can feel free to put those in the chat, and she can politely interrupt me when needed, and I can answer that question. For myself, some of you may already know me, but I am TSM Ivalua team lead, as well as Ivalua certified solution architect. So I will be going through that with you guys. Anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn, feel free to do that, as well as Karen. Happy to connect. In terms of the agenda for today, we're going to focus on key bits on AI to start with. So we will be showing you the Eva virtual assistant, which is a Gen AI capability within Ivalua, which they are rolling out to all their customers. And also, we will be covering one free of charge add-on that is available from Ivalua in terms of how you can actually use that to do supplier discovery. So I'll talk about a bit more on that when we look at it. We'll also cover the new module. Well, it's not really a new module. It's more of a split from supply risk and performance module, and we'll tell you why it's useful now that Ivalua have split it, how it can be useful for you to actually use that, and how we can roll that out for some of you who may have not been using that. And then we'll also cover two add-ons, which are very quick add-ons, but they're very useful in the sense what it can do. It may help you in some of the pain points that you have, like in terms of inviting a supply to register, or requesting supply to actually provide documentation. Sometimes it's easier to go through in the system than to do the chat and email functionality. We'll then cover intake form, which is free of charge intake form, which anyone can actually use, and we'll cover that. What is out there? How can you use that to actually request suppliers? And any platform user can actually use that. Then we'll also cover there's an intake management solution as well from Ivalua, and we'll cover what is the difference between a free of charge and a licensed intake management solution, and how both differ and which one you may want to use in future. And at the end, we'll go through summary of what we've discussed and any future webinar that are going to be happening soon. Okay, so let's crack on into the presentation and see if we can go through some of these use cases. So I'm just gonna go back. Okay, so the first use case is more about how we can use the chat functionality, Eva chat functionality. So Ivalua have released that. There is no cost to actually use that Gen AI capability. It uses Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot capability, not ChatGPT, to be precise. And what it is this Eva virtual assistant, basically. And there are different things you can do. It's more conversational, okay? But I'm going to start off with showing you how you can use this to conversate. That, let's say you're setting up a new supply, and you don't have any add-ons to actually go and tell you about the risk or what you know about this supply. You can ask questions. So you can say, for example, have there been any recent adverse media events involving Tesla, for example? Okay, that's just maybe I'm registering Tesla. Okay, don't know. And I can ask that question, and the Eva agent will go out using Gen AI, and it will bring back what it can actually um, find. Okay, um, it is generating that. I think it's a bit slow, but it is gonna come back, and Tesla has encountered several adverse. Stop there. Sorry, guys. Let me just see if I ask the question again. Apologies. I'm in a demo environment, and sometimes it behaves differently. But there you go. So I actually done it on the other one. It was just a bit slow for me. So what it's done is saying, oh yeah, Tesla has faced several, adverse media events, primarily focusing on financial issues, and we all know what's happening with Tesla. So I wanted to just take that as an example so everyone can correlate. You can see that they've had financial troubles. Uh, the situation led to a 6.8% drop in stock value, which we all know. Some of you look at stocks. And there are other things, there's shareholder concerns, crisis communication. So it will go and find what it can. And then what I can do is I can start conversating with chat with AI. So I can say, okay, by the way, uh, tell me what is the risk level according to top risk agencies, maybe. Okay, and it will obviously try and find any available information free of charge, of course. And it's now telling me, okay, based on that, the risk score is 2.9 overall, and this is where it's getting it from, global data. There are some concerns that you may be aware of, small scale of operations, potential issues. It tells you everything. And this could be useful when you're onboarding a supply, okay? And so, yeah, so all of that functionality is there for you to actually use. Another use case which I like to actually show is you can conversate on a document that you wanted to analyze. So a typical example could be maybe you have a contract from a supplier, okay? And you can, for example, I've got this agreement from Dell. I can get Gen AI to actually go in and review that document for me and tell me what's in there. So at first, it will just give me a summary. So it's telling me quite a bit of information. Is basically telling me, okay, the analysis is as a Dell contract. In summary, it's a service agreement. There's an exhibit there. So all of these, it will come back and tell me. And what I can do is I can actually ask more questions. So I can say, by the way, tell me what are the key obligations, maybe. Okay, so it can go and track it, and it will tell me what are the key obligations. Okay, so it's analyzing again, and it will say, okay, by the way, these are the key obligations. There's non-compete agreement, there's an insurance requirement, confidentiality, and so on and so forth. So all of these is very conversational. Okay, and then I could also ask, okay, tell me if there are any key dates I should be aware of in this contract, and it can basically show you that information on a click of a button. Now, obviously, this is more conversational. You can copy and paste information if you were doing other things, but later in some of the sessions that we're going to do in future, we'll have a contract focused webinar where we can also look at how AI can then fill in some of the information for you automatically. Okay, not just conversating, but it can also fill in information for us. Another use case of an AI I wanted to go through was which comes across quite a lot when I'm doing a lot of these demos is supply discovery. There are especially in FMCG type of industries where there's a lot of traction on finding supplies, new suppliers. AI can actually help you suggest who you actually engage with when you're doing an RFP, for example. So for example, if I go to a sourcing event, so when you do a sourcing event, and some of you who are using RFP functionality, you can see that when you come to select the suppliers to actually engage with them. So for example, at this stage, I've only discovered one supplier. I've added it to my RFP, but I could ask Eva to actually suggest me more suppliers. Yeah, and what it's gonna do is gonna try and find the supplies within my past, um, events, for example. Yeah, it will go and find those past events. Go on. A bit slow, sorry. Was there a message, I think, Karen? While we wait for this to kick in, we can answer that question. I can see the question is, okay, there's more questions. We'll come back to that. So you can see that as soon as I said, okay, can you discover supplies? It's actually suggesting me, it's telling me, by the way, these are all the supplies that I've actually looked into your database and found that you actually use them in the past. So for example, and it also gives you recommendation and the reference to the project. So it's telling you ASUS, you might want to go with ASUS because they also deal with motherboard and RAM. And you have actually used them in the past. And it says the reason for recommendation is they have participated in a similar historical sourcing event before, okay? And that is the sourcing event. And you can also go to the details of the supply within Ivalua. So that's how it can actually suggest the supplies. One is already I've added, so it's also suggesting that that is fine as well. And then they asked me, do you want to onboard these supply, meaning that these onboard onto this RFX, you know? So if I don't want to actually add them to my RFX, I can say, no, I don't want to add them at this stage because maybe I'm looking for more supplies that are out there, not just in my database, but more potential supplies. So then he asked me a question saying, okay, do you want to search externally, meaning that go and look outside my database? I say, yes, I want to. However, I can personalize that. So for example, if I'm looking for, I don't know, hardware, motherboard and RAM provider, I can say, can you only focus on UK-based suppliers? And I know it's AI, but it's always good to say, please. So I'll do that. And then what it will do is it will use that prompt, you know, that personalized prompt. It could be a prompt to say, okay, by the way, can you find suppliers in the UK with these certifications as well? You can even ask it to actually look for those suppliers. So based on that, it's telling me there are 3 suppliers that are based in the UK, and why they're good. It also gives you that analysis, and it not only that, it also gives you their website as well. Okay, so at this stage, if you wanted to potentially onboard these suppliers or not just engage them in this, you can say yes. But for now, I'm just going to say, no, that's fine. I'm done with that. I can go with just 1 or 2 that I already have. So you can see how it can be useful, that supply discovery type, which can be very, very helpful. And there are other use cases that we can build, not just this one. So imagine there can be other use cases. So for example, if I say, okay, just restart this, and there are skills. So you can see there are some skills already in there. Like for example, historical prices, that's something that TSM is actually building at the moment, which can really help people who are requisitioning. It can help them find the right price to go with or the buyers to go with, you know. So we are looking at developing that. Hopefully when we come to do the P2P sessions, we might be able to show you that at this stage. But you can see there are others, like for example, you know, the create a contract, which I'm going to show you in the contract sessions. And also there's a legal assistant, which I'll show you in the contract session. So there are other use cases and we can build new use cases. So the idea is that the whole world is open. So you could have specific use cases and we can, as TSM partners, we can actually build those use cases for you as well. Okay.
Kishan, just before you leave AI,
Sure.
Emma asked a question, and it was about when you're getting it to read a document, does it have to be a smart document or can it just be a scanned document?
It can be any document. Obviously, its accuracy might be less when it comes to a scanned one, but if it's a really good scanned document, it's brilliant. I've used it myself on contracts. It's brilliant. It doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Thanks, Ishan.
Any other questions we had, or we okay?
The other question was more about the whole security and about Ivalua going outside of Eva going outside of Ivalua. And I've said to Stuart that I'll send him all the extensive InfoSec documentation around that. So yeah, don't know whether you want to answer it, but you can if you want to. But I know there's a lot of documentation about it.
Yeah, the documentation should definitely cover in more detail, but on a high level, the reason why I mentioned initially was we're not using ChatGPT, we're using basically Copilot, which anyone who knows who are rolling out Copilot to their organization, it's much secure, meaning that the data that AI uses, they cannot be used elsewhere. Yeah, so it's specific. They can't use that data. It will only use it for the time being to actually come up with the prompt, but it will not store it anywhere at their end. So hopefully that document should clarify some of the technical details as well. Okay, so moving forward, we've looked at skills. Yeah. Yeah. So the next one is more about the supply information management module that has been split from SRPM. So the reason why we wanted to highlight that is some of you may not be using the supply information management to actually set up a supplier or onboard a supplier or manage the supply in the system. With this module, there's a fixed price for that module, meaning that you can do all of that management of the supply within the system without having, and any platform user can actually use it because there's no user count on that. Okay, so it's just a module SIM, they call it. And the only difference is, and I'll cover that in a minute on screen as well. The only difference is that it's split into two, meaning that you have a supply information management and the risk and performance. They've actually split that into a different module. The reason being is it used to be very expensive, the whole module as being one. Now you pay one fixed cost just to manage the supply, and all of your platform users who do not require a license should be able to use that module. So some of you may have a platform license limit, some you may not have, yeah, depending on what license regime you guys are on. But in terms of what's included and what's not included, if I go onto a supplier record, sorry, not the contract. I go to supplier record. So when we talk about SIM, the ability that you get is you'll be able to manage the metadata, first of all. So anyone with a platform license can actually come in and modify this information. They can use change request process. They can manage contacts in the system. Okay, don't need a license for that anymore if you have that module. You'll be able to manage documents, meaning that you can maintain certification, any key documentation against the supply. You'll be able to qualify the supplier as well. So anyone can actually come in and qualify a supply. You'll be able to maintain sub-tier network. All of that is within the same module. You'll be able to look at any activity, any other activities onto other modules. So sourcing events, contract, and so on and so forth. And you'll also be able to actually onboard a supplier as well. And that is all part of the same module. What you will not be able to do is not be able to actually maintain a risk score or a risk qualification or evaluation when it comes to performance, as well as ESG, which is a separate module anyways, but I just wanted to highlight that. So these are the bits you will not be able to do as part of the supply management. So you can't send questionnaire campaigns, you can't do any of that. For that, you will still need the risk and performance module, which is separate. It's an expensive module. So, and normally it's only key users who use that. And people who are actually answering to questionnaires, they don't consume a license. Well, they consume a platform license, which is in some of your cases it's unlimited. Okay, so that's the only difference. Any questions before I move on, Karen, on the SIM?
No, Mark.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now, next, I wanted to show you very basic, very simple add-ons, yet very powerful add-ons that Ivalua have released, which we can actually leverage. One is when you start onboarding a new supplier, sometimes you have to send them a request to you send them an email normally with a link to the registration page to do the self-registration. We can use the same functionality inside the system, meaning that you'll have more audit to who sent request to who. Yeah, so it's all in the system. And what we have, we call is a registration invitations. This section here can be used by the SIM users to actually invite supplies to register. So I could say, okay, it is, for example, test supply. All I need to put in is their name and the email address and send this invitation. And once I've done that, you will actually keep a record here. Okay, they will receive an email with a link to the registration page. So you wouldn't have to do this, and it's audited because then you can see who's actually sent the request to the supplier. If the supplier said they haven't received it, you can always look at the history and see that. The other add-on which is useful is if I go back to the supplier record, is the document request option. Now, obviously, as part of the onboarding, the supplier will come to a registration step. They will actually fill in or attach any key documentation. But sometimes, let's say down the line, there's a key certification we need from them, and they haven't actually provided that. Uh, you can send them a task basically, as opposed to just using a chat functionality saying, "Oh, can you do this or that?" You can actually have a workflow behind that. So that would be a special ad hoc request of a document. So you can say, "Okay, can you provide me this type of document? Name the document that you want, who the owner is. Generally, is whoever is doing it is the owner, and then this is when I need a buy, okay, or begin, and then you submit this, send it to the supplier. And what will happen is when they receive this, they'll see a prompt to actually upload, similar to how you would see it here. So, for example, I've already done one. If I look at this, this request was sent. It will come to them like this, and they will have a workflow. So they wouldn't have to initiate this. That's the good thing, and they will see a task in their homepage, and they'll be easily able to actually submit that document for us. And then obviously the rest of the process is exactly the same. You get an alert to say they have provided the document. You approve that document. Only then it's an approved document. Otherwise, it's sitting with you to actually approve that. So I thought these two are yet very small functionality, but it can have a very big impact. So it would be useful to show you that. Any other questions before I go into add-ons? We just go back and recap. So we've done this so far. So we'll have a look at the intake management next. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
no more questions.
Thank you, Karen. So intake management, we have two types of intake. Well, one's called an intake form. The other one is called more intake management. The difference is that intake form is a free of charge version. So that was before intake management came through, and some of you may be aware of that. It is an add-on that we can use free of charge, which kind of gives us similar functionality, but obviously intake management gives you more visibility than what intake form can give you. And usually you want to use intake functionality when you have requirements where people want to actually request a supplier or request a contract within your own user base. So it's not like you're asking the supplier to self-register. It's more about before you even ask the supplier to self-register, you need to actually have some sort of approval internally, a request process. There are different names people use, initiation document, PIF sometimes. There are different names for those type of initiations. Okay, and it's more like a request to actually have something set up, and it's not limited to just supply, contract, and sourcing event. It could be many other things you can use it to actually request it. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So the first one I'm going to show you is an intake, free of charge intake process. Yeah, and by the way, because it's free of charge, there's no license implication either, meaning that you can actually roll it out to all your users. License platform, anyone can actually use it. You just need a platform license to actually access it. And what it gives you is a browse page as well as a create page. And you can see I've got some that I've got one that I've requested. So I've requested a supplier to be set up, which is an approved request. I'm going to create a new one. And when I'm going to create a new one, it's going to give me different options. So by default, apologies, going to refresh. It's been a while. It's been sitting like this. So while it loads up, it's going to give you three options. You'll be able to request a supply. If you have access to sourcing module, you can request a new sourcing event to be set up or a sourcing event to be started. And the third one is you can request a contract to be set up. Okay. And when we look at the intake management, you'll see far more information, far more forms that you can have. So just bear with me for a second. My system has just timed out. And obviously the other difference between the free of charge version and the other one is that the other one is actually licensed. Okay, you have to buy that license and then you have to configure that to actually use it. So let me just save this. So the first thing is going to ask me what do you want to request. So at this stage, I'm just going to use Supplier, but more things can be added to this list if you needed to. But for a free of charge one, you only get 3. And then it will ask you, okay, are you sure you want to create a new supply record or you want to go and browse? So you can use the browse option to actually see if that supply already exists or not. If it doesn't exist, then you can say, yeah, I want to create a new supply. I want to request a supply to be created. So it will be ESM Consulting. And the unique identifier is maybe DUNS number. Okay, and they are in the United Kingdom. They're probably going to provide us with IT professional services. Okay, and then that's the contact. Okay, I can put all of that information. And by the way, we can also add more fields. So let's say you want to request your requesters to actually provide me with documentation, or for example, one of the other things which I'm being asked all the time when we set this up is, okay, I want the requester to actually tell me estimated spend that you're going to be doing this year with that, and you can use that then information on the workflow. So at this stage, I'm going to just save this and show you the workflow before I submit it. So all of these requests, albeit is supplier, contract, or sourcing, it will go through a workflow, which is configurable, as you know, with previous implementations. But this standard one is a one-step or two-step process. Somebody submits it, somebody approves it, and then somebody actually finally approves it. So you have a two-step authorization process, okay, that you can have. And I can submit this. So I'm going to do this. And then somebody will, you can see that they'll see who is it gone to. Somebody will authorize it. And finally, the final authorizer signs it. And you'll see on the right, once it's done, it's actually created the supplier registration for me. So if I click on this, you wouldn't even need to go through the registration, to be honest. It's automatically done this. And also, on this occasion, it was rejected. Yeah. And they would receive an email as well why it was rejected. It was actually rejected because the name already exists, which is good. You know, it checks all of those things anyways. Okay. But it will do that for you. And then obviously there are other options. You know, if for example, if you're using something else, let's say you're using a contract. If you use a contract one, it will basically show you different field based on the contract as well. Okay, so that's one intake management. Intake form we call it. Intake management is a different module. Okay, which is a license module. Apologies, I haven't got data in here in my demo environment. But what it allows you to do is it's got a own homepage or a dashboard, which can tell you every cycle time in number of days, how much time is taken for me to actually go through the request process. There are other KPIs, you know, my in progress intake that are going through, total value of the intake, and so on and so forth. But if I go into, it's pretty much similar in terms of how you create it. But the difference is that you can create more types as well. Okay, whereas the free of charge is only 3 types. With the intake management solution, you can actually add more types to that. Apologies again, my system's been really slow today. But when it loads up, you'll see, if I just duplicate this, maybe sometime it's, okay, no, let it run. Any questions meanwhile, while we wait for this? Karen, you can go through.
No, no more questions have come in. You must be telling everybody everything they want to know.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good. Let's just wait for that to finish. But you can see that some of the useful KPIs can be on somebody's homepage as well. So if I just go to the intake type, you can see at the moment I want something to buy. It can even it can be used for requisition requesting. You don't have to create a request. You can use the intake for somebody to actually say I want a laptop. That could be just a basic request, which can then create a requisition automatically for them. It could be a review a contract. It could be a register a new supply, or new sourcing. It could just be a query. So you can see how you can use it for different things, not just for. So it could be used to actually request a new cost center, maybe. Yeah, and we could have automation at the end of the process that once you've got all the correct information, it will create the cost center automatically. It could be a request to create a new user. So not just for this, it can be used for many other things. So let's go back to our browse. And I'm going to create a new one, but I'm not going to finish the whole thing, but I'll show you the difference basically. So you can see it's pretty much similar. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to register a new supply and then ABC test. And I can provide any description for why I want that. And again, I can add more values. So I could say, so this title is for my request new supply, maybe. This is supply ABC test, and I can provide other information which is required. Could be that tax ID is this, first name. Let's use Peter. Okay, so once I've done that, let me just save this. So maybe this is for Clarity Cosmetic, a legal company meaning. So once I've saved this, you'll see that I've got a process workflow behind that, and this workflow we can extend if needed. Yeah. So this is for somebody who is only requesting a supply. They don't really onboard that supply. They don't want to know. It's a platform user who doesn't manage any supply or anything. They can submit that request, which will create the registration for them once it's approved, of course, and then it will track the other steps on the onboarding. So you can see that they can see whether the supply onboarding registration has been completed. Has the supply been enrolled? Some of you may be familiar with some of the supply workflow. So it could be whether the risk assessment had been done. So they don't need to go into the onboarding workflow, or they don't need to be engaged in that process, but yet they will still have the visibility over that. And there's a workflow behind that to start. So if I just submit my intake, which is similar to the free of charge version, as soon as I do this, you'll see that it's actually created a supply registration and it's in progress. And not only that, if I just refresh that. Oh yeah, okay. I can't open it because there's nothing in there. And this one is in progress. I just refresh this. Yeah, it's still in progress. But what will happen is that once somebody has authorized the registration step, okay, they'll be able to then look at that registration process. If they progressed it to the supply enablement step, they'll see a message here, and they'll be able to do that. And there's a refresh button as well for them to actually see what has happened so far. Okay, so all of that can be tracked. That's the only difference, that you get more visibility for your end users through this module, as opposed to the free of charge version, which doesn't actually give you that functionality. Okay.
Zishan, there's a question here from Stuart. He's asking about can workflows be created and changed by the customers or system admins themselves, or does it need to be a TSM kind of configuration change?
So workflows is always a configurational change, but that doesn't mean that your users can't do it. They can do it if they are certified and they know what they need to do. Then they can do. Otherwise, we would have to make those configurational changes.
Thanks, Zishan.
No problem. Any other questions?
Nothing else on the chat.
Okay, so I think let's just summarize. So we went through all of these, yes, and so the next, in terms of a summary of what we went through, and in terms of whether it will require a license, whether there is a version I need to be on to actually use it, is there any consultancy services which will you might need to take to actually use it? So I'll cover those. So the first one I went through was the EVA, the virtual assistants. There is no license whatsoever for this. But what we recommend is you should at least be on version 180 or 182, which is the latest one, to utilize some of the new skills that Ivalua are actually, every month you see one or two skills being set up, which are free of charge, and we just install it for you. So if you're on the latest version, you will actually benefit from some of these new skills they're actually releasing every day. Yeah. In terms of consultancy, all we need to do is we need to install this feature for you, activate it, and also there may be some profile changes, because you may not want to actually release it to every user. You may do. If that is the case, then it might be an easier setup, but you may say, okay, Zishan, I want to actually make a separate profile to actually limit who can actually use this chat functionality. Okay, so there will be some minimum setup. When it comes to supplier discovery, again, for that one, there's no setup at all. All we need to do is install it for you. There's no license, and obviously recommended is version 180 at least. Supplier information management, there is license required. Some of you may already have that license, you're just not using it. Okay, and Karen can definitely, if you reach out to Karen, she can help you find that information about your license. But it's just one-off license, and then in terms of setup, it'll be some workflow changes. Just small, maybe one or two sessions, design sessions to go through, and then do the configuration, profile, and access, and we should be up and running with that one. In terms of the add-ons, the two add-ons I showed you, the supplier invitation to register and the document request one, again, there's no license for that. All we need to do is install that for you. It's like any other deliveries we do. We do these. It could even be part of the regular deliveries that we do. We can just install it for you as part of that. So it'll just be an installation service. When it comes to the intake form, which is a free of charge form, although it is available on all versions, but I think we would strongly recommend it should be at least version 180 that you should be on. There's no license required. It's just an installation and setup cost in terms of changing the workflow slightly, or sometimes possibly adding new fields. Okay, we'll just add those and get that set up. In terms of the intake management, yes, it will require a license. It's only been released recently, so you have to be on a latest version 182. And the other reason why everyone should really be on 182 is Ivalua is releasing the new layout version, they call it, version 10 or something it's called, which basically means that in order for you to actually go on to the latest version, you have to upgrade to 182 before you can actually upgrade to the latest one, because they're changing. So it's always good to actually be on that version anyways. And if you have any question, reach out to Karen. And intake management installation is required. They will be set up similar to intake form, but there will be a bit more set up on there. We also wanted to highlight where we go with this. So we have other, webinar coming through in future. We obviously you'll see that on LinkedIn. We'll also send some marketing email as well to you, so you know which ones are coming through. So the ones that are coming next are the contract focus, which is next month. And then after that, sourcing focus. Then we'll also cover a specific one just for AI enhancements, okay, including some of our developments that we've done. We'll also have a session for Ivalua platform tips and tricks. One thing we've noticed is that many of you are using the system, but you're not aware of some of the tips and tricks, that which can be very helpful for you. If you knew about them, it can really help you use the platform better. We'll also cover one on its own on a supply risk and performance, okay, including issues and collaboration plans, exceptions module. We'll also do one on category management using the AI research assistant. Many of you who are category managers, you have to actually do some sort of research. Sometimes it's a bespoke research to make sure that when you're managing it, you are aware of any events that could impact your category. Okay. Also, we'll be doing requisition and ordering tips and tricks, including the intake form, which you've seen some of it, but we'll go into more detail. We'll also do invoice management tips and tricks. There's also a session for spend data. Some of you who are only using source to contract, it'll be useful to actually see how we can actually bring in spend and what are the different options, how we can actually bring in spend from external systems and put it into our system for you to look at. And then lastly, so far we said we'll also go through reporting and analysis. We are open to suggestion. We're more than happy for you to actually provide some suggestions in the chat or afterwards to Karen, what else we can actually add in future. But there will be many more. So we're hoping to do once a month, one session.
Please,
So,
Shan, with your
yeah.
permission, this may be a good point for us to open up the platform to everybody, just looking at that list of webinars that are coming, because of course, you're running these for the benefit of our customers. So I think it would be great for you to, if you don't mind, I'll try and open up the floor for everybody. And if anybody's got any suggestions of what they think they would like, then please shout. And so I'm going to try and open up. I'm hoping it's going to work. Open up the mic and the cameras. If anybody would like to participate and tell us what you'd like, please feel free, because we are running these for you.
Contract change management. Okay. I think contract obligation extraction. Yeah, maybe we can do that, Stuart. That's a good one. We can maybe include it in the contract session.
Thank you, Zishan.
No
yeah, that'd be a good one. We can include that in the next session, Stuart. Yeah, we can focus on those. Any other suggestions from anybody? So you are able to put your mics on if you prefer. Yeah, absolutely, David.
Yeah. Everyone's shy,
absolutely.
I think.
I'll send that to you, David.
Perfect. Okay, if there's not anything else, I would like to thank you all for joining, and would love to see you again on some of the next sessions that we're going to have. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Zishan.